Singapore.
We're good. Hi, my name is Jonathan Puleio. I'm an ergonomist with Humanscale. We're here today to take a look at a typical workstation to give you some tips on how to work more comfortably with less risk of developing an injury. Let me just start with giving you a quick overview of what ergonomics is about. In ergonomics, we have a simple goal, and that is simply to fit the workstation to the unique characteristics of the body. In traditional work environments, we have just the opposite. People are presented with fixed work variables, I should say, and as a result, they are forced to conform their body to the work. And this is where a lot of the discomforts actually arise from. So first things first, let's start with the chair, and we will move to the keyboard, take a look at the mouse, look at the monitor, and a few other items. So first thing you want to take a look at, you'll notice that Emily here is using a backrest pillow. That backrest pillow, unfortunately, is a little bit of a misconception as far as it being healthy for you. It actually changes the characteristics of the backrest, and it pushes Emily forward and will actually alter pressure distribution along the seat pan. So in an ideal scenario, provided that the chair is adjustable, we actually want to start without the pillow. We can always add things later on. So let's take this out. Let's put this on the side. Now, what you'll notice is that if you take a look at Emily's seat pan, there's a significant gap between the front edge of the seat and the back of her knee. So we're just going to ask Emily to sit back in the chair. Now you'll notice that for her to use the backrest, the seat pan is actually interfering with the back of the knee. So that's a simple adjustment. Good news is that on this chair you have that control. So let me just show you how to do that, and we can fix that problem. So can I just ask you to stand up for a second?
Sure.
So we're just going to tuck this in a little bit. You see there's a pretty significant range. It was all the way out. You probably want to tuck it in somewhere around here. Let's see if that's a better fit for you. Okay,
It's much better.
It does look a little bit better. There's about 2 inches, a little bit less of clearance. It's adjusted properly. So now what we want to do is actually get the seat height of the chair appropriate. Right now, the goal is to get your thighs about parallel to the work surface, and what you'll notice is that her thighs are actually sloped downward, and that's an indication that the chair is too high. So that's very simple. There's a knob. I'm sorry, it's just a button on this side. Just going to bring this down. Sorry about that. Okay, that's actually a better relationship.
It does feel better.
Okay, so you see how her thighs are now about parallel to the floor, her feet are firmly planted, and she's actually utilizing the backrest of the chair. The next adjustment that we want to take a look at are the armrests. Now the ideal position for the arms are such that when you have your hands in your lap, you want to take a look at where your elbow falls naturally, so your seated elbow height. And you'll notice that the arms are a little bit higher than where her elbow falls. So what we'd want to do in this case is just bring the arms down, okay, just a little bit. There's a little control here. Okay, so now when you place your hands on the armrests, that should be a little bit more natural. If the arms are too high, you'll shrug your shoulders. If they're too low, you won't have much support. So you can see that when they're too low, we have that kind of a relationship. And actually, maybe that's a little bit better. See, now more of our forearm is supported. So you just make the adjustment on that side. They're about even. It's hard to, yeah.
So.
Okay. This is just a little here. Okay, I think they're even now. Okay, so on traditional chairs, the next thing that you'd want to do is actually unlock the backrest and adjust the tension knob. Traditional chairs have all sorts of controls that allow you to vary the tension relative to your body weight. And the goal, of course, is just to promote movement, because the more that you move throughout the course of the day, the healthier the spine, the more the spine can remove waste products, and the more the spine will reabsorb fluids throughout the course of the day. On this particular chair, the recline mechanism is self-adjusting. So based on your body weight, the backrest tension is set automatically. So we don't have to worry about it. There's one more knob, one lever that we don't have to adjust. Just think about having 500 people in a work environment and having to train people and making those adjustments. This particular chair does that automatically. So if you could, just try reclining in the chair and just double check that you can stop wherever you want to stop as you recline. You feel like it provides support?
That's great.
Okay. So the goal is, I mean, clearly you want to be in a supported position. You don't, you don't necessarily want to recline all the way back. But the more body weight that you transfer to the backrest and the more postural shifts that you can make throughout the course of the day, the healthier your spine will be. So that becomes very important. The other thing I want to note about this chair is that it actually, you'll notice that it actually has 3 panels of mesh built into it. And that's to actually preserve the curvature and to help match the curvature of the backrest relative to your spine. Some of the earlier mesh chairs had one piece of mesh, and the problem with one piece of mesh is that when it's stretched over a frame, the curvature flattens. So we don't see a very good fit, particularly when the user places body weight into the backrest of the chair. By stitching panels of mesh together, not only can we eliminate the need for a height adjustable control, because it sort of self-adjusts to your lower back, we don't have to worry about an external lumbar support. These are typically hard and they sort of, they push into the lower spine. They're typically not very comfortable. So we've eliminated that compromise essentially through design. So that's really all there is to adjusting the chair. The next control that I think we want to demonstrate, or the next component, would be the work surface. So let's take a look at the desk. Pretty traditional setup. Emily has a keyboard and a traditional mouse. What you'll notice is that almost immediately we have somewhat of a problem. And that is the position of the keyboard relative to Emily's natural hand position is not appropriate. Okay? Your hands are actually higher than your elbow, and one of two things will happen. Either you're going to anchor your wrist the entire day, right? So basically you're using the desk as an armrest. That can become fatiguing, and the compression at your wrist can actually increase intercarpal tunnel pressure, which is a problem. Or you'll wind up shrugging your shoulders the entire day. It's interesting, a lot of people don't know this, the standard desk height of about 29.5 inches correlates to the seated elbow height of a 6'4" tall male. That's a 95th percentile male. So less than 5% of the population matches that traditional desk height. So traditionally what we would do to address this is we would actually install an under the desk keyboard support, and that would give you complete control over the height of the keyboard, the slope, and the position of the tools. We don't have one to demonstrate today, so we're going to solve the problem, but in a slightly different way. We have a footrest over here, and let me just grab this. This is a height adjustable footrest, and I'll just show you real quickly. By loosening this, we can actually raise and lower the position, so depending on the person's height. But what we're going to do is we're going to adjust this and position it so that it helps bridge the gap between your feet and the work surface. Now, one thing I should note, you notice that Emily's wearing she's wearing a heel. Well, on a day where, let's say you had flat shoes, you'd want to make another adjustment, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's so important to just learn the relationships, because depending on your footwear, everything could get thrown off again. So let me just position this. Sort of tuck this underneath. Actually, I'm going to lower it a little bit. I don't think we need it that high. Okay, we want to basically center it with the keyboard. So now what this is going to allow you to do is actually have supported feet. You'll notice that it's actually designed to move. That introduces some lower leg movement. That will actually improve your circulation throughout the course of the day and reduce lower leg blood swelling. your blood actually pools in your lower extremities. That's what I'm referring to there. But now what we can do is we can actually raise your chair so that the relationship between your upper arms is appropriate to the keyboard. So let's just, Emily, if you don't mind just standing up for a second, let me just raise your chair a little bit. Okay. I think, why don't you try this and see if this is a better relationship here. So now you'll notice that her elbow height is much more aligned with the position of the desk, and that's because we were able to bring her higher. One other thing we want to do, you'll notice that when she goes to type, we want to center the keyboard with the midline of her body. You'll notice that there's a gap between the keyboard and the front edge of the desk. Because of this, she's actually angling her wrists, right? That's called wrist extension. That's linked to a variety of different musculoskeletal problems. And she's also anchoring not her palms, but her wrist crease. Compression on the wrist crease has been shown to double fluid pressure inside the carpal tunnel. So what we're going to do is we're going to install this palm support, okay? And now you'll notice it changes the relationship of her wrists. Okay? Her wrists are now much straighter. She's no longer anchoring the wrist crease, but now the fleshy muscles of the hand or the palm are now supported. So that's actually a much more neutral typing position.
Feels better right away.
Oh, you notice it?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So the next thing that we want to demonstrate, let's move over to the mouse. Now this is a very traditionally designed mouse. How would you typically utilize that mouse throughout the course of the day?
Right here, which is not good.
Mm-hmm. You see how there's side-to-side movement of the mouse? And there's the same problem that we just described with the keyboard. There's anchoring of the wrist, right? So all of those issues are actually postural problems that we know are linked to musculoskeletal injuries. So what I'd like to do is just show you real quickly an alternative design that is designed to solve this problem. So this particular mouse integrates a palm support. So if you just place your hand on that, you'll see immediately there's a difference. And actually the way it's designed, there's a few things I need to point out here. You'll notice that the bottom is actually shaped like a V. That's because we want to address overpronation of the wrists. When you have your hands down at your side, and you bring them up naturally, you'll notice that they assume a 45-degree angle. Well, when we use a traditional mouse and keyboard on the desk, we're actually overpronating. And when we overpronate, we use additional muscle activity that can become fatiguing. It's also linked to the pressure issue that we talked about in the carpal tunnel. So that's the reason why this is angled, is to actually put your wrists in a natural 45-degree pronated position. This particular mouse is also length adjustable, so based on the user's hand size, we can actually tailor the size of the mouse to fit your hand. And it actually comes with a fitting guide. You just place your hand on the handprint and it tells you exactly what size you are. So let's see, right now I think it's on 3. Let's see if that matches. So your hands should actually be on the buttons.
Right here?
Yeah, it looks like it's a little long for you, right, to be comfortable. Okay. So let me just move it in. Let me just, let's try a 1. Does that seem like it fits better?
Yeah, this fits
So the idea is that your palm should be mated with this palm support as much as possible. And then rather than use it like a traditional mouse, like left and right, try using your whole arm. So it's a little bit off to your side right now. Let's just move it a little bit closer to your shoulder. And now this is a situation where we could actually bring your arm up a little bit. So you see, try not to grip it with your thumb.
Okay.
Try to just rest your thumb and think about using as least amount of muscle activity as possible, right? So you're not actually gripping the mouse, you're just letting it sort of glide over the desk.
Okay.
Right? So these large sort of gross motor movements, right, help keep the wrist straight. Now, just look at the difference. Let's just swap this out real quickly. Now this is something you're probably very used to. Posturally, see how they're... So you can use this mouse the same way by taking the heel of your palm, moving it like this, and sort of gliding the whole arm. That is possible, but what more often than not, what people do is they use it like this. They anchor, and they do this all day. So not only do you have the extension of the wrist, you have the anchoring, and you also have this side-to-side bending, which is called ulnar radial deviation. What we're trying to achieve with this is just a much more neutral and fluid, straighter hand position. Can you see how that's different?
Yeah.
Takes a little getting used to, but it's absolutely a much more neutral posture to have throughout the course of the day. All right, so the next position or the next important factor would be the monitors. And monitors are pretty straightforward. There's only a handful of guidelines. The first guideline is the height. And we actually look downward naturally at -15 degrees. And what that implies is that the top line of text, the top line of your monitor should really be at eye height. So take a look at where your eyes are compared to where the top of the monitor actually is. These monitors are much too high for you at the moment. So what we want to do is, these monitors happen to be attached to a monitor arm, so that's great. We have really easy and good controllability of the position. So we actually want to bring it down. So now your eyes, I don't know if you can see that from the side, but now the top line of text is pretty much at eye level. Okay, and now this is much more consistent with your natural viewing gaze. You won't have to either extend your neck backwards if it's too high or flex your neck forwards if it's too low. Now there's another very obvious problem, and that is the alignment. We really want to align the center of your spacebar with the center of both monitors. This is a dual monitor display. I'm making an assumption that you use the monitors about equally, so we'd want to center the center of the screen with your keyboard. So in this instance, that's possible. I'm just going to move these a little bit closer. And what you'll notice is it affects the distance.
It's probably be better for my eyes.
Well, it's a little too close, right? So there's a little bit of an installation issue here. What we want to do is actually move this track this way, and that's going to allow us to sort of fold the arm so that it's aligned with you, but it's all the way back. So this is what the relationship, this is what the alignment should be. Okay, assuming that you have the position there, it is possible with this configuration to get the arms all the way back to the desk. The distance is pretty straightforward. It should be about an arm's reach. So assuming you bring your keyboard all the way to the edge, let's just bring this here. Let's set up this so it's about aligned. Why don't you just double check, look at the distance of your monitor. When you reach your hand out, you'll notice it's pretty good. And actually, if you set all the way back, right, see it's about an arm's reach. So the distance is not too bad if you can get in the habit of using the backrest of the chair. So now the workstation is starting to become aligned. We've now adjusted the chair. We have the keyboard and the mouse positioned correctly, and we also have the monitors. So now it's a question of, well, how do you use all of this, right? Well, ideally, you want to tuck as much of your body under the desk as possible. So you can scooch the footrest forward if you need to. Yeah, let me help you with that. Okay, so we'll just get this underneath. That's going to allow you to, that brings you much closer to the desk, which is good. And now you'll notice that while you're typing, you can actually use the backrest at the same time.
Yeah.
By offloading body weight, she's going to reduce discompression in her spine. You'll notice that her shoulders are relaxed, her elbows are at her side, and because of the palm support, her wrists are now straight, and her body is aligned with her monitors. So the only other thing that I wanted to demonstrate is lighting. And this is, now we're really fine-tuning. We took care of most of the physical relationships. Now we're talking about the ambient environment. We have an LED task light here. What you'll notice is that by adjusting the height of the lamp, you can actually dramatically change the amount of work surface illumination on the desk. So you don't necessarily need a light that has a dimmer, you just need a light that's very controllable. So because the height, the distance between the light and the work surface is what controls the ultimate work surface illumination level. Why is lighting so important? Well, what's interesting is that as we get into our early 40s, our visual system changes dramatically. We all experience a condition referred to as presbyopia, and that involves the natural hardening of the corneal lens, and the muscles that control the lens start to atrophy. So the act of focusing on near-field objects becomes problematic. By the time you get into your 60s, you actually require more than 250% more contrast than you did in your 20s. So everyone in a work environment has different levels of, or different lighting requirements depending on their age and depending on their task. Now let's assume you were using paper-based work. Well, we don't have documents here, but really the task light is to optimize the documents that you have in front of you. If you're not using documents, the task light is less critical. The relationship here is pretty straightforward. Monitors emit light. So the best amount of light for a monitor is actually a scenario where there is no light because it's emitting light. So to optimize a computer monitor, you would want to be in a low light level condition. Where we run into a problem is paper reflects light. So the proper lighting level for paper is completely different than it is for a monitor. Papers require 5 to 10 times more light than does a monitor. So the benefit of using a task light is we can actually start to change the light level above the eyes, right? So we can actually reduce the amount of light above the eyes to optimize your computer monitors. And then for the work that's happening below your eyes that requires light, like paper, that's where the task light comes into play. Now ideally, if you're right-handed, you would want the task light to be positioned on the left side of your body. And there's a very simple reason for that. When you go to right and you place your hand, the light is going to create a shadow on your work. Where if I was left-handed, you see that there's no shadow issue. So that's a very simple change. We would actually just want to move assuming you were right-handed, we want to move the task light to the left side. What we would also want to do is, assuming you use your phone frequently and you answer with your right hand, rather than having you reach across your workstation all day, we would want to swap the two. So we bring the phone to the right side, we bring the task light to the left side. And then as far as fine-tuning, you would never want to do this. You never want the light on your monitors. You want the light to basically just sweep across your work on anything that requires you to visualize throughout the course of the day. So we would have it, and then if you want to change the intensity, it's just a matter of controlling the height, and then also, on this one, you do have the ability to change the output. So you have some controls. So, in a nutshell, that is the setup. We've now talked about all of these different relationships. We've optimized your work environment based on your body size. And as long as you have some of the basic guidelines, no matter where you sit, you can adapt your work to your body. So, did I miss anything?
No, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.